At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Coming up on this episode of the Mario Rosenstock Podcast.
He said, we're seeing 15 people today for this job. Yeah. Tell me something about you I'll remember tonight when we go through the 15. I took my mobile phone out and I thought, I'm not losing this job to a really rude man. And I said, see this mobile? I said, it's turned off. And he goes, and? I said, my wife is due to give birth today. If you find someone out of the other 14 who want to work for you more than me, give them the job. My daughter was born and I joined Sky the same week. And that again was the start of another beautiful journey.
If, like me, you like to follow what's going on in the UK, or if you've been a regular viewer of Sky News over the last 20 years or so, you'll be very familiar with my guest on this episode. Enda Brady was born and raised in Wexford, and he fell in love with journalism at a young age. He went on to study journalism in the UK, and slowly, through grit and determination, he rose to the top of the big leagues of media in the UK, spending over 16 years as senior correspondent at Sky News. Enda has covered hundreds of major news stories, as well as landing interviews with people like Tiger Woods, Zlatan Ibrahimovic and Michael Jackson. Enda is at the coalface of a story that I'm totally fascinated by. The self-destruction, it seems, of the UK. Farage, the far right, Stop the Boats, Keir Starmer, the ineffectual leaders, 14 years of conservatism and stagnation and austerity. Where's it all leading to? And Enda's been at the coalface of that story. Enda and I have a great chat about why he got into journalism in the first place and how he managed to carve out such an impressive career in the media. He tells me some great behind-the-scenes stories of the celebrities he has met, and naturally we get pretty stuck into the complete shambles that is UK politics today.
I was on a day off, minding a newborn baby, and I said, look, Nina, the only golf personality who's going to get on Sky News in the next few weeks is Tiger Woods. And quick as a flash, she says back to me, it's Tiger Woods. 2 days later, I'm flying first class to Dubai. And he goes, what was that? I said, the day for Preston North End that you scored a corner kick directly, I was behind the goal against Doncaster Rovers. I said, do you remember it? And he went, no, mate, no recollection whatsoever. And I was thinking, you liar. Farage making himself out to be a friend of the working class. He's establishment, privately educated, ex-hedge fund manager, multi-millionaire. And the earnings have gone through the roof since Brexit. I tell you what, if he becomes Prime Minister in 4 years' time, last person left in England, turn out the lights. It remains my favourite ever interview because I was very proud to be asked. They paid tribute to Stephen, a guy they clearly loved as a brother. And you will never see Shane, Mikey, Ronan and Keith in the same room together doing an interview like that, ever.
My full chat with Enda Brady coming right up. But first, a gift grub from this week that I just wanted to include on this episode because I put so much bloody work into it. The WWE is visiting Dublin for the first time that it's going to be televised. The first time it's being televised in Dublin. It's on in the 3 Arena this weekend. It's the WWE, and I just had to imagine what it's like. The WWE in Ireland.
And this is it, WWE in Dublin, Ireland.
Who knows what's going to go down?
First off, it's the Presidential Summer Slam.
To decide who gets the presidential belt of all Ireland. Oh my God, what a start. Here she comes. I don't believe it. It's Heather, the hit woman Humphreys.
Harry, come and get me here, huh?
In her white Zara suit, sunglasses perched perfectly on her freshly blow-dried hair.
She puts the fine into fine Gale.
Come on, hey.
Wait, what's happening?
Who's the guy with the beard?
Oh my God, it's Sean Kelly from the GAA.
No, listen, Heather, take it easy, please.
Shut your gob, Kelly here. Take this.
And a handbag from Humphreys straight into the face of Kelly.
That's a €2,000 Louis Vuitton.
Another handbag. Looks like she's going for an early knockout.
That's a mulberry to the jaw.
Humphreys looks like she's going to take the presidency early.
No, but wait, Josh, who's this?
There's someone in a green, white, and orange balaclava. We can't tell. Oh my God, is it one of the kneecap guys?
Could be.
Off comes the balaclava.
I don't believe it. It's the Marauder, Mary Lou McDonald.
Chucky R.
Raw.
Humphreys cannot believe it.
Mary Lou, get off my toffee.
Oh, and now these two powerful women are getting it on. Stilettos in the air.
Oh, handbags flying.
Brunette versus blonde.
They're both on the canvas.
But what? Wait! Who's that standing on the ropes?
I don't believe it.
How are you?
It's back from the dead. It's Birdie.
Where did Birdie come out of? Here comes the Birdie body slam.
Jesus.
It's all over.
It's all over.
All over. Here comes the second bout for Ireland's podcasting powerhouses.
Matt the Hatchet Job Cooper and Ivan the Terrible Yates.
These guys used to be arch rivals, but now they've teamed up for tag podcasting.
Bit of respect for us, please.
Irish begrudgery, Matt. Look at those skimpy shorts, Bill. Are they Speedos?
Parading around the ring in their aviator glasses. Kings of the power podcasting game.
We ask the questions, please.
That's right, Matt. Oh my God! Yates rubbing baby oil into Cooper.
Oh, that's lovely, Ivan.
Isn't that nice, Matt? These guys bossing the podcasting ring. It's a tough watch.
Nobody's gonna dare take them on.
But wait! Oh! I don't believe it! It's the hottest podcasting pair on the planet! Joanne McAnally and Vogue Williams!
Cooper, Yates, your ass is mine.
Do you know, Matt actually has a great arse for now, fella, Joanne.
And here come the girls off the ropes! McNally smashes a glass of Pinot Grigio on Cooper's head!
That hurt.
Vogue Williams clocks Ivan Yates with a box of Purcell Automatic!
Take that, Ivan.
But wait, what's that? That can only mean one thing!
Oh my God, it's the Royal Irish Rumble.
That means it's a free-for-all in Ireland's 3 Arena!
I can't believe it. Country music legend Daniel O'Donnell is in the ring. I'll take his all on. Come on.
Behind him, look, it's Hotelier Francis Brennan!
Howie, try this, Daniel.
Oh, he takes O'Donnell down with his Dunstores pillow!
But look at this, off the ropes, it's Davy Fitz.
Money gets stuck into ye, hell for leather.
Smacks Yates with his hurley! He's ramming his slither ball down Matt Cooper's throat!
Do you want some, O'Donnell, you tool?
Heather Humphreys headbutts Daniel O'Donnell!
But wait, look, I don't believe it. It's former late night TV host James Corden.
Hi,
Where did he come out of?
me, in Dublin, in WWE.
Gordon beginning to make everything about himself again! But wait! On the ropes! Look!
Oh,
Corden!
I don't believe it. It's mild-mannered DJ Ian Dempsey.
Corden!
The savage from Sutton. We know how much he hates Gordon.
Ian, what's wrong?
Have you heard of Dempsey's Dozen?
Dempsey shouting out his own podcast live at the 3 Arena!
I don't think he's talking about his podcast, Josh. Oh, Ian!
Dempsey gonna work on Gordon's face! It's all over!
It's all over in Dublin! And more exclusive comedy on the Mario Rosenstock Podcast every week. And, of course, a big, huge thanks to my sponsor, deluxebathrooms.ie. Of course, you know who they are by now. Get up to 70% off Europe's biggest bathroom brands. You can transform your bathroom for less, upgrade your bathroom. It doesn't have to be expensive. Why not capitalize on these amazing offers? Their August blowout sale is on until August 31st. You can find them at Dundalk Retail Park and Little Island Retail Park, Eastgate in Cork. An absolutely fantastic company. They've been involved with the Mario Rosenstock Podcast now for months and months and months, and they've been great supporters of ours. Visit their amazing showrooms. Deluxe Bathrooms, Ireland's premium bathroom and tile retailers. Okay, let's cross straight over to the studio and meet Enda Brady. His dulcet Wexford tones have been such a regular feature on UK TV for years and years. But how did this proud Wexford man end up over there in the first place?
So I ended up in the UK because I didn't get enough points in the Leaving Cert to do the journalism course at DCU, which was in its early stages. So, like, you know, points are everything in Ireland. You live or you die by them. I thought I'd got a fairly decent Leaving Cert out of St. Peter's College in Wexford in the summer of 93. I was not going to DCU with 5 honours and 2 passes. So that was that. However, I had done a lot of work experience on my local paper, the Enniscorthy Echo. Jimmy Gann was the editor, and I basically followed Jimmy around Enniscorthy, every pub, every coffee shop he went into. Please, can I come in on work experience? Please give me work experience. Jimmy let me in on work experience. We formed a great friendship. I was out doing hurling matches around the county, Gaelic football matches, soccer matches, everything and anything around Wexford. And the end result was, okay, decent leaving cert and 2 summers of work experience at the Echo. And that got me onto a journalism degree course at the University of Central Lancashire in Preston. So I headed over to England in September 93, and that was the beginning of a great journey.
And when did you end up in Sky News?
So I joined Sky just a couple of weeks after my daughter Saoirse was born. I actually had my interview at Sky on her due date, would you believe? And I was sitting there in the job interview, and the guy, Simon Cole, who was number 2 at Sky at the time, he said to me, look, he said, we're seeing 15 people today for this job. Yeah. Tell me something about you I'll remember tonight when we go through the 15. And he was so abrupt the way he said it. I took my mobile phone out, and I thought, I'm not losing this job to a really rude man. And I love Coley, he's a great guy. But I took my phone out and I said, see this mobile? I said, it's turned off. And he goes, and? I said, my wife is due to give birth today. If you find someone out of the other 14 who want to work for you more than me, give them the job. And my daughter was born, Saoirse, and I joined Sky the same week. And that, again, was the start of another beautiful journey.
That's cool. What a good story. And how long were you in Sky?
17 years. Yeah, it was amazing. Went all over the world. I loved it.
Yeah. I mean, just from my outside impression, I mean, I saw so much of you on Sky. It must have been an incredible roller coaster ride for you as well. But I remember when Sky started, this is just my opinion now, right? I remember when Sky started, I mean, obviously you were up against the Leviathans of, Channel 4, ITV and the venerable BBC. And it seemed to me that maybe, Sky was fun and playful and all that sort of stuff, and a bit blockbustery and a bit tabloid. And that's maybe how it seemed. But but through the decades, Sky slowly developed a much, much more respected and accountable form of news. So now I think it's seen at exactly as a similar standard and a similar level of trust to any other news organisation. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, completely. Look, Sky News works like a bicycle chain. All the little cogs fit together. The chain goes round 24/7. If they get a cog that doesn't want to be there or a cog that won't fit with the next cog, flick, they're out. The chain goes back together again and the bicycle keeps moving. So I learned a huge amount at Sky. It was led by a guy called John Riley. I spent 17 years working for him. A genius, a broadcast news genius, just gets it. He knows what works and he drives high standards into people and in every aspect of your life. I mean, it's an amazing company. I learned so much there. Travel the world, met A-listers. You get a phone call. Oh, can you go to Dubai and interview Tiger Woods? Oh, can you be in Soho at 2:00 and meet David Beckham? Absolutely loved it. But you're right. Sky started out as an outsider and with fewer resources than the BBC, a very lean news operation and very sharp management and really hard-working camera crews, producers and correspondents, it became the Sky it is today.
Yeah, all right, Enda. I've heard your little sales pitch. That's all very well. But say something to me on this podcast that will make me remember this podcast tonight, right? Now, listen, I'm going to name a few names for you, right? And you just tell me a few stories, right? Tiger Woods, then. Go on, tell me. Tiger Woods.
Tiger Woods. So, yeah, I was at home one day. How that came about, I was at home one day and there was a girl who had worked in Dublin. She was Finnish and she left Sky News to join a PR company I'd never heard of. I'm at home changing a nappy, not a word of a lie, with a mobile phone propped up like this, changing a nappy. And she rings me up and she goes, Enda, I've got a golf client. So this was her first week in this PR job. And she said, I've got a golf client who wants you to do an interview with him and to get on Sky News. And I was on a day off minding a newborn baby. And I said, look, Nina, with the best will in the world, the only golf personality who's going to get on Sky News in the next few weeks is Tiger Woods. And quick as a flash, she says back to me, it's Tiger Woods. So 2 days later, I'm flying first class to Dubai with my cameraman. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah. And we went out there and it was about 6 months before his life unraveled, if you get my drift
I
here,
do.
Mario.
That would have been, I can put a date on that then. That would have been about, I can actually put a date on that now. That would have been about June or May 2010.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, precisely. So he'd been paid an awful lot of money to design a golf course for the ruling sheikh in Dubai. We went out there. We had great crack. And the really funny thing was, so my father's a guard. He's originally from North County Longford. He served in Mullingar, Wicklow Town, where he met my mother. And then obviously the rules of being a guard in your home area or your partner's home area, we moved to Wexford and I was born. So my dad's best friend in the guards in County Wexford is Paddy Riley, who's a Tipperary man, huge hurling fan. They're best pals. I sit down with Tiger. He hears my accent and he goes, "You're Irish, yeah?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh, 100%. And he goes, "Do you know Paddy?" I was like... I was thinking, which one? So I was thinking, how in the name of God does he know Paddy Riley? And he goes, "Oh, I guess you call him Padraig." And I was like, "Oh, Harrington." I said, so I said, "I don't know him." I said, "But his father was a guard and my father was a guard."
Yeah.
And Tiger adores Ireland. He knows every inch of Limerick. He's been to Limerick so many times.
Loves
with
JP.
JP McMahon's. Yeah, so a fascinating chap. And the really funny thing was, the PR woman had said beforehand, she said, absolutely no selfies with Tiger. Tiger will not sign autographs. Tiger does not accept gifts. All this like prerequisites before. And my mother had rung me before I went out and she never asks me for anything. And she said, "I'd love an autograph from Tiger Woods." So we messed around. We had a bit of crack. I said to the cameraman, "Take loads of time putting up the lights because I've got loads of things for him to sign." So I said to him, "I hear you don't sign autographs." And he said, Who told you that?
Yeah.
And I said, "You're one over there." And he goes, "Of course I'll sign them." So he signed an autograph and I looked at it and I said, "That doesn't say Tiger." And he goes, "My name's Eldrick Tiger Woods." So sure enough, he signs his autograph, Eldrick Woods, but my mother got her autograph.
Ah, nice one. Brilliant. David Beckham, anything in that one?
Beckham, yeah, interesting guy. So I had a little part-time job when I was at university in Preston working on the turnstiles at Preston North End. So that started in 93, took me all the way up to summer 96. And would you believe it, towards the end of my time there, David Beckham came on loan from Manchester United. I think it was season 95-96.
Yeah.
He was driving a blue Ford Escort. He had not made, honest to God, he had not made his league debut.
So he hadn't scored that amazing goal against Crystal Palace from the halfway line yet?
No, not yet. But wait till you hear this punchline coming, Mario. So anyway, I go along. My little job on the turnstiles, you got 15 quid in cash every Saturday for about 2 hours work. You had to balance up the books. Back in those days, it wasn't like tickets and ticketless. People paid money on the turnstiles. You had to sprint as soon as the turnstiles were shut, sprint to the accounts office, dump your money, and they give you a ticket back in and your 15 quid.
Yeah.
So anyway, Beckham's debut, Doncaster Rovers for the record. He scores direct from a corner kick.
Okay.
Right? I'd never seen it done before.
Yeah.
I've never seen it since. Then a couple of weeks later, we were at home to Fulham, who were way down divisions. This is like bottom league football, old Division 4. It was, I think it was League 2 at the time. So anyway, he scores an amazing free kick against Fulham. Oh, spool forward all these years later anyway, he becomes David Beckham. He wins everything, Champions League, Real Madrid, marries a Spice Girl. And I get sent to interview him for Sky News. So we're sitting around, camera crews and I said to him, so I was behind the goal the day he scored the free kick, the corner kick directly. And he goes, what was that? I said, the day for Preston North End that you scored a corner kick directly, I was behind the goal against Doncaster Rovers. I said, "Do you remember it?" And he went, "No, mate, no recollection whatsoever." And I was thinking, you liar. Everyone would remember that. Out of all the goals you've scored, your league debut and you scored direct from a corner. Funny fella.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean, funny fella? You think he did remember, but he just wasn't letting on?
He is the only sports person I've ever met, and Ferguson said this about him, who embraced fame more than the sport. I think he is and has always been in love with being famous, whereas you meet the likes of AP McCoy, the jockey, for anyone who doesn't know him, the winning most Irish person in history. AP McCoy doesn't care about being famous. Doesn't care if you recognise him in the street. Win.
Agreed.
That's all he's interested in.
Agreed. And I mean, if you're to believe the rumours, well, first of all, Beckham wouldn't make a list of the 30 best players in Europe in the last 20 years, or even the 20 best players in Britain in the last 20 years. But if you believe the rumours, the whole thing he's fixated on was the Sir David Beckham thing, getting the knighthood and all that. You know, that was.
Oh, look, queuing up to see the dead Queen in a coffin for how many hours? 6-7 hours in the street like a civilian. All the charitable work if you notice, he's popping up. Charles has him on speed dial.
I know.
If Charles was unveiling a new rose bush in his backyard and asked Beckham to come along, he'd be there. He's desperate for a knighthood.
He is, and that's not a bad impression you did of him either, Enda. So you've got a little bit of spite left in you there now, and that's nice. Hugh Jackman.
Time, Mario.
Yeah, that's all right. It's Victoria.
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman. Do you know what? An absolute gent. Woo-hoo! So I met him by accident. I was in Australia. I've done an awful lot of radio work in Australia and New Zealand over the years, and I've presented shows out there, and I love it. I was in Perth, and I was asked to run the City to Surf Marathon in Perth. It was August 2019. And it was for I do a lot. I love helping out cancer charities. My mother survived breast cancer. Yeah. So there was a charity called Breast Cancer Care Western Australia. We did a fundraiser. It was a lot of fun. I ran against a horse 3 nights before the marathon. It didn't end well, as you can imagine. This was on TV in Australia. The horse, different ends of a racetrack, but I was running on the sand, and the end result was I ruptured a ligament in my foot. It was really painful. Yeah. But long story short, me and my dad went out for breakfast the next day, and we were in Cottesloe Beach having our breakfast, minding our business. Hugh Jackman on the next table. Absolute gent, really chatty fella. Came over, had a chat, got some photographs, told us how much he loved Ireland. He toured Dublin and he'd been everywhere. Absolute gentleman, really, really chatty guy. And my family back home, everyone just could not believe that me and my dad went out for sausage sandwiches and a coffee, and we met the greatest showman.
Talking about football players as well, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, probably one of the most huge personalities of footballers because of his, self-regard, I suppose. I think he believes himself to be the greatest player that's ever walked the earth.
Yeah, so I met Zlatan. I spent a day with him at the World Cup in Moscow in the summer of 2018, and we ended up being there for 6.5 weeks. It was a really long trip. He was fascinating.
Was he?
So he was really, really chatty guy. His agent, Mino Raiola, who has since passed away, he came along. We did the introductions. Now, I have a cousin from Longford, Francis Riley, who has spent most of his working life in Italy. And through him, you see I'm wearing an Italy jersey today, coincidentally. Through my cousin Francis, I ended up learning really good Italian. So I get talking to Mino, the agent, Zlatan, we're chatting away. Now, the problem was, it was all organised by a credit card company in the United States that begins with V. And there was 2 PR ladies there, and they were from California. They didn't know who he was. They were very rude about his agent, who has since passed away, so I can tell this story. And they insisted that every question I asked Zlatan, I could only ask him 2 questions, and I had to mention visa. So anyway, he turns up for the interview. We're chatting in Italian, and the agent says to me, "You don't look happy." And I said, "Io non sono contento perché?" So I'm not happy, and I'll tell you why. So I told him the whole story, and he said, "Let me talk to Zlatan." So Zlatan comes over and he speaks in the third person. So he looks at me. He's 6'7". I'm 6'3", and I'm like looking up at the guy, and he goes, "Zlatan says you can ask Zlatan any question you like." So we did the interview. And then the really funny thing that happened at the end was they went off. The woman from America comes. She goes, "Did you mention visa? Did you get the visa question in?" And I was like, "Just go away, leave me alone." So I've been working on this book for a long time. I had this, what I thought was a genius idea one day in the pub in Wexford. As journalists, we're always asking people negative questions. So I thought, imagine if you were to ask a sports person, "Tell me about the greatest day of your life." So I went back over to little Mino and I said, "Mino, come here. One last request. This is a personal thing I'm working on. Greatest day." So anyway, Zlatan reappears, comes up to me and he goes, "Zlatan likes this idea. Zlatan thinks this is great idea. Please ask Zlatan the question." So I said, so I got my recorder out on my phone, on my iPhone, I said, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, please, could you tell me about the greatest day of your life? I said, you've played for Barcelona, you've scored for AC Milan, you scored a bicycle kick against England from 40 yards. But what was the greatest day of your life? And he goes, shortest interview I ever did. It lasted 37 seconds. And he goes, greatest day of Zlatan Ibrahimovic's life was day Zlatan Ibrahimovic's mother bought Zlatan Ibrahimovic football boot age 6. And I said, but what about interview over? Zlatan is emotional.
Well, you put it, that's fantastic. And another brilliant impression, Enda. Hey, where did these impressions end? You know?
Watching you.
Who else is in your armory now that we're into it? Who else do you like doing?
Well, you know, Mario, you're a great guy. You do some awesome impressions.
You do some awesome impressions yourself, Enda, but I know who you were trying to do, and it isn't as good as mine because nobody does me as good as me.
That's phenomenal. You know, we should meet sometime and have lunch.
The
and
great
it'll be nice.
Enda Brady, Enda Story, Enda the Brady Bunch, we call him, the Brady Bunch. 6'3", like me, and 210 pounds. Yeah, like hell.
But I don't own any golf courses.
Oh, boy, you love it, don't you? Fair play to you.
I'll stop.
But Enda, listen, so the other one was... I've done a few gigs in my time, right, over in London. And I remember one gig sticks in my mind, which was a few years ago. And it was for Munster Rugby, ostensibly. And it was over in Knightsbridge. So a beautiful hotel, kind of well-to-do people. And I came in and I did my whole routine, you know, Ronan O'Gara and all that sort of stuff. And I had them going, and it was a good gig. And afterwards, we had a couple of drinks in the foyer. And I remember looking around. And I remember seeing a guy about 20 yards away from me. And... he was holding court, and there was about 5 guys around him in a circle. And I remember thinking to myself, there's the Irish guy. That's one of the guys. He's come here, you know, an Irish guy. And I remember talking to him about 20 minutes later. And of course, he was Irish. And all the guys around him were Brits. And of course, he was in marketing or whatever, something like that. But he was obviously doing well in his company, young fella. And obviously, he had the gift of the gab, you know. They kind of gathered around him. And it's something that I'd seen a little bit, you know, the Irish man, the modern Irish man goes abroad to Britain and has that gift for kind of energy, enthusiasm, conversation, playing people off each other, slagging, taking the piss, the confidence, something. And you have that as well, Enda, that kind of, ebullient personality and plenty of energy. And I'm wondering, as an Irishman who, of course, never changed his accent, I mean... your accent is still totally Irish, and did you feel that you were well received over in Britain over the 20 years, kind of over those years, because of maybe your Irishness? Did that give you anything? Do you think, or am I barking up the wrong tree?
Do you know what? I'll tell you a story, actually, which could have had a profound effect on me, but I've like skin like a rhinoceros and I really don't care. When I got my first TV gig with ITV Meridian, the big boss was not on the interview panel, and his number 2 gave me the job. So a couple of weeks later, anyway, the big boss comes back from his holiday, calls me in. I won't name names, but let's call this guy Andy Cooper. And he says to me, I don't like your accent. He said, you know, I just don't like Irish accents. And he proceeded to tell me why me being with ITV Meridian was not going to work and I should look at doing something else, blah, blah, blah. And I just won Young Reporter of the Year, right? This was 1998. I just won Young Journalist of the Year. I joined ITV Meridian in March 99. And here's the boss guy telling me that he doesn't like my accent. So anyway, we agreed to differ. And 2 days later, someone came up to me and said, oh my God, I didn't know you're friends with Terry Wogan. And I said, I'm not. I've never met him. And they said, he gave you a great shout out on Radio 2 yesterday, said that he turned on the evening news and he saw you out and about reporting and he thought and so lo and behold, not a word of a lie, the timing of this was just immaculate. Terry Wogan had watched the news the next night. And then randomly, because he was such a chatty, gregarious, entertaining broadcaster, pointed out that he'd seen this young Irish fella on the TV the night before with a very strong accent. And the moral of the story from the great man himself, Terry Wogan, was never change, be yourself. And that, when more and more people, you just don't appreciate how many millions of people used to listen to him on the radio. I had people coming up to me for weeks after going, geez, Terry Wogan loves you. And eventually I was lucky enough to meet him at a function in the Irish Embassy, and I thanked him for that, because that could have gone either way.
Did you come across Tubridy at all when we was over in the UK?
We have met for coffee. Yeah, Tubbs is a great guy.
He meets them all for coffee. It's all behind us now, Enda.
I love his energy. I love Ryan.
Yep.
And he has given me great time over the years. He's given me great advice. Yeah. And he's a wonderful broadcaster.
Yeah.
And Ryan is doing really, really well here. I love his social media. Yeah. He is embracing life, and he's a guy who lives life and loves life.
He's in a very peculiar situation, isn't he, Enda? It's a really peculiar situation that not many people have had to go to. First of all, I'd echo your sentiments there. Tubridy and I would know each other fairly well, obviously having appeared on his television show 20 times over the years, and the prep that goes into that and the crack we would have had together. Socially at the beginning, we knew each other quite a lot as well. But it's a very peculiar situation he's in, the idea of being sort of, you know, the main sort of entertainment TV personality over in Ireland, to be suddenly knocked over into your perch, and in your early 50s then to go over to next door neighbour, the bigger neighbour, and sort of dream it all up again and start from nothing. It's a very unusual position, isn't it?
It takes resilience. Look, people get knocks in life. I think of Shane Filan from Westlife. He had a very difficult situation there maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And look at him now, absolutely flying. I think Irish people have great resilience about them. And Ryan, to land in the UK where he was not a household name. You know, when he was on Radio 2, I had people saying, who's the Irish guy? Have you heard of Ryan Tubridy? And you've like, he's an absolute legend in Ireland. You know, The Late Late Show, Ryan Tubridy, Radio 2 FM, everyone knows Ryan Tubridy. So coming over here, the problem I think with a lot of people in the UK is they're not very worldly. They don't look outside the UK. They've no clue what is going on in Ireland. And it's 50 minutes away on a flight.
Just you mentioned Shane Filan there. One of the interviews you said, which was one of the best interviews that you've done, or one of the most touching interviews you've done, was with Ronan Keating. Isn't that right?
So after Stephen Gately died, a few weeks after the funeral, I had covered the funeral, I'd covered everything for Sky News. I knew Ronan reasonably well, and a couple of the other lads. I did not know Stephen Gately at all, and God rest him and his family are wonderful people. It was a very, very difficult situation to cover. And what happened was, in the aftermath then, I had a phone call from Ronan asking if I would come to Dublin for a day with the camera crew, that the surviving 4 members of Boyzone wanted to do one interview to pay tribute to Stephen, and that they would never ever speak again as a foursome as they now were. So I went to Dublin, and it was a very nice house on the Quays. We chatted for precisely 1 hour, and I let the guys speak. It remains my favourite ever interview because I was very proud to be asked. They paid tribute to Stephen, a guy they clearly loved as a brother. And you will never see Shane, Mikey, Ronan and Keith in the same room together doing an interview like that ever. So I'm not an expert at interviews, but I just thought, this is their story. I'm not going to talk all over them. I want to hear them speak. And at the end of it, I had tears in my eyes. And to this day, I still have people who will say, I love that interview, or that was well done. And I just thought, out of respect to Stephen and his family, I want this to be the best ever. But why I regard it as my worst interview was because the heartbreaking tragedy of a young guy dying at the age of 33 and his friends having to go through all of that. You'll get people, I think Irish society can be quite chippy sometimes and negative. They are amazing guys. They are wonderful men. Every now and then I will get a WhatsApp from Shane wishing me well. You know, we've had drinks over the years. I don't know Mikey very well. Keith is flying now with his touring with Brian McFadden and what have you. And Ronan is a gentleman. And north of 15 million quid raised for breast cancer research by himself. Very, very good guy.
Yeah. Did you see the documentary?
I did. They asked me to the premiere, and I thought that was a nice touch. I thought it was very, very good, very respectfully done. And it kind of told the story of a crazy time, you know, being in a boy band, all the adulation and being everywhere. And then the god-awful situation where a phone call comes and Stephen has died in Majorca at the age of 33. I mean, devastating, but I have huge respect for them. And then the icing on the cake really for me was Christmas just gone. Ronan asked me to host his Emeralds and Ivy fundraising night for Marie Keating Foundation and Cancer Research UK in London.
Brilliant.
And he raised £1 million in 3 hours. Yeah. And I'll tell you a funny story, one last funny story, Mario, about that night. Had my own dressing room, but I had to share it with Tom, who's the main man in Keane. If everyone knows all the big Keane bangers over the years, Somewhere Only We Know, This Is the Last Time. So get into the dressing room, we're having a chat. And he said to me that he'd written some new music. And he said to me, what's the vibe like at this thing? And it's Christmas, everyone's up for a party. And I said, no, new music, no. I said, go big, go early, and go home. And he said, but what about this? I've written this new. And I said, you don't want to be George Michael at the closing ceremony of the London Olympics. You might remember he played all his new tunes.
Did he?
And people just wanted the bangers.
Because I love George Michael,
Yeah, well, his new music, but just watch that set back sometime. Yeah. It was not great. People want the Wham bangers, the George Michael classics. Yeah. They don't want your new music. So I very diplomatically suggested to Tom from Keane that maybe just stick to the big ones. And fair play to him, that's what he did, and he smashed it. And I loved it. To be able to play the piano and see that guy, he's a genius, Tom.
Ronan, of course, and the boys in Boyzone, they were very much. They've been very much part of Gift Grub all down through the years as well. The whole
fair play,
please God, in fairness, fair play, please God, in fairness. And we found out early days that apparently Ronan didn't like it. Now, remember, he would have only been about 22 at the time, or 21, in his Harley Davidson days with Yvonne on the back of the Harley Davidson going into Captain America's or wherever they would have turned up, or Planet Hollywood or something. And, but then I think what happened later then was Keith, I was also doing on Gift Grub, how are you, buddy? And all that sort of stuff. Keith would have been more pragmatic and we're going, look, buddy, you're better off on it than not on it, buddy, because it means you've done something. Then Ronan went the other way and he went, yeah, I love Mario on the old Gift Grub. In fact, I named my boat Fair Play. So he overcompensated it for it. But Keith was on the podcast, this podcast as well. And one of the best interviewees you can have, because he has a great line in being straight about stuff. He doesn't mind saying it. He doesn't mind going there. He doesn't mind saying it. And he's a brilliant interviewee. He's got a lovely line in authenticity and candor. And he's a little unfiltered, but in a deliberate way, not in a kind of I'm on the spectrum way. He's unfiltered deliberately. He says, no, I'm going to say this. I'm going to come out and I'm going to say it, and I believe what I'm saying, and that's the way he sticks with it. Obviously, a lot of rancor between themselves and Louis over the years. I personally thought Louis was edited quite unfairly, maybe, in the documentary. There were clips of Ronan after the Stephen stuff. There were clips of Ronan going. You'd come back, camera would catch Ronan, and he's in tears, and then the camera would go to Louis holding the paper, going, "Oh, they printed it on the front page." And you're going, Jesus Christ, lads, you're laying into him here. Do you know that kind of thing where editing is everything, Lynn?
Yeah. Oh, look, I think in any drama or any presentation, there's a hero and there's a villain. Everyone has their opinion of Louis. All I would say from my own personal interactions with Louis over the years, he has been good as gold with me. He has provided interviewees. He's a PR man, and that's what he does. And he's fun in his own way, but these guys were working with him. They've got their own relationships and they have their history and everything that went on. But I like Louis. He has been good to me. But, if you were to pick a handful of guys to really represent Ireland on the world stage and what they've achieved and what they've done, you can't get better than Ronan and Keith and Mikey and Shane and Stephen. I thought they were wonderful.
Listen, Enda, let's move on, because I wanted to just get your thoughts on this, maybe, just to thank you for all those stories and like a good newsman, you tell them so succinctly, like little nuggets that we can use. But I want you just to maybe be a bit more thoughtful about this next part, and that is, you spent a long time in the UK. I consume a lot of UK news. I listen to a lot of LBC. I watch religiously Channel 4 news every night. I record it. I watch it the entire hour of it. I listen to the Today Show when I can as well. and I read some. I read the Guardian and I read the Telegraph as well, and in that sort of stuff, just to get sort of both sides of the spectrum over there. The UK is been in a funny place for a long, long time now, starting from maybe 2010, 2011. There's been no growth in the economy for 14 years. It's been stagnation. The country looks as if it's going backwards. It wasn't going anywhere economically. And then in 2016, it almost gave itself a kick in its own bollocks. Why would anybody kick themselves in the bollocks? And since then, there's been a downhill since 2016, no matter which way you look at it, whether it's culturally, culture wars, knife crime, the economy, investment, political divisions, a lack of political talent, the idea that the worst people are rising to the top. Where are all the good politicians? For all his faults, and we know there are many, and one particular, you could never deny the caliber of politician that Tony Blair was. How he lifted the country economically, how he was a master politician, how he was respected on the world stage. We won't mention the Iraq War right now because that would be another day's podcast, for which he made a gigantic mistake in hindsight. But an incredible politician, a politician of world caliber, surrounded by other politicians of world caliber, Gordon Brown, people like that. Doing business with other politicians of world caliber, people like Bill Clinton, who again with our caveats. And now, who have we got? What is happening to Britain? Do you have any observations, Enda, about where UK is at?
The UK is going backwards at a rate of knots. Now, I've been here since 1993. And what I've observed is decline year on year. So there's no growth in the economy whatsoever, flatlining. They've 9.2 million Brits of working age, 18 to 65, doing nothing. Not in employment, not paying tax, not in education or training. Nothing. Tumbleweed. Same people are paying the high taxes, keeping this whole show going. Brexit has been catastrophic. It is like an arterial bleed, and nobody is prepared to get in there and provide a tourniquet for it. So the UK right now is in a very, very strange place. And as you mentioned, the caliber of leader, Blair, who I've met and interviewed many times over the years, super smart guy, great communicator. Everyone knew what was happening all the time, landed his message and delivered, with the one major flaw being foreign policy and Iraq and the love affair with George W. Bush. However, year on year, you think Brown then takes over, Cameron gets him out, and Cameron can't fight what he called the swivel-eyed loons. This is Cameron's own words. Now, I know David very well. I've been around his house many, many times. He lives up the road from me in Oxfordshire, and because of geography, I used to be sent to do that interview a lot. Cameron then, to kind of head off these swivel-eyed loons, his words, he gives them the Brexit referendum. We get people like Michael Gove appearing on TV saying, oh, we don't want to listen to experts. You know, if you've got something wrong with your body, who are you going to go and see? If you've got an operation to be had on your body, do you want an expert surgeon or some random fella? This is the narrative that was sold to the British public. Because of their history winning 2 world wars, the British Empire, Bobby Moore in 1966, they think they can fly. So they're sold deliberately a pup. They're told they're better than everyone else. We don't need Europe. Oh, we don't need this. Look at the Irish, they're skint. We don't need the Greeks. They've gone bust. We'll be grand. And guess what? It hasn't been grand. It has been terrible. It's like watching a funeral cortege that never ends. And year on year, it's getting worse and worse, culminating, I think, in Liz Truss getting the job. Then Sunak, I don't know how on earth they picked him, a guy who left the D-Day ceremony early. I mean, you know, I'm no politician, but if I was the UK Prime Minister, D-Day, you turn up, you go and shake an awful lot of hands of old men who were on those beaches in Normandy, shed a few tears, get yourself on the front pages and win the bloody election. Starmer wiped the floor with them. What they're now heading towards slowly is the prospect, and I just tangle it out there as a prospect, Nigel Farage becoming Prime Minister in 4 years' time.
Wow, I think that's a really succinct, you got it all in there. And now Starmer. And for all the hope, because I listened to James O'Brien a little bit on thing, you can hear the dying hope in their voice. They thought maybe they'd get something out of Starmer. A man of the law, a man of letters, a former, chief prosecutor. He's looking like a vegetable as Prime Minister, For idiots like me, satirists, when people start looking like weak like that, you start seeing, well, what is it the worst thing about them? He sounds like Zippy from Rainbow, for starters.
He has that
Zippy had the Zippy.
Zippy has that thing in his voice, and we are doing very well as a community. He sounds like the yes, Jeffrey. Yeah, we are doing extremely well.
He sounds awful. He's the man who's doing nothing. He's the man who is making no decision about anything anywhere.
All I would say, Mario, is he inherited a complete basket case, a hospital case of a country. There's no money. You've got all these people who want a lifestyle who aren't prepared to work. 9.2 million, the dog walkers, as I call them. I'll see them out on a Wednesday or whatever, and I say to my wife, what's he doing? Why isn't she working? And my wife will say to me, well, they probably think the same of you. I run a lot cross country, so I see these people out walking their dogs. No one wants to work. Everyone wants to work from home. There's not enough tax coming in. Starmer's been left with massive debts. There's no money, and you can't get an economy going when you've decided to tell your biggest trading bloc that, adios, lads, we don't want to know you. We're going to be grand by ourselves because guess what? We're doing a trade deal with India. So Starmer's biggest problem is one of communication. His right-hand man is Morgan McSweeney from Macroom in County Cork. He's a super smart guy. But they need someone to sit down with Starmer. And someone asked me advice last year about communication. Senior person in Ireland who I won't name. And I said, you need to think like a sniper. I see all these people getting up on stages with a machine gun, firing 40 bullets, 40 messages. No one's listening. You need to get on stage, one bullet in the chamber, one message, look your target in the eye and land it. And Starmer's not capable or prepared to do that. So he's got a huge fight on his hands. And mark my words, the next election, if he still is Labour leader, it's not between him and the Conservatives because Kemi Badenoch will be gone by Christmas. It's between him and Farage for the keys to number 10 in 4 years' time.
Yes, you're right. The man, fond of doing cameos, which he goes, and a big shout out to Chucky All-Law. This kind of character. A fascinating character. A master media performer, I would add. One of the best I've seen. One of the best I've seen. If you are not politically literate, you will look at him talking and go, I like that guy. He's making sense.
Look, Mario, I'll tell you a story. I had a young girl on work experience when I was at Sky around the time of the Brexit vote, and she was from Sunderland. Now, the only major industry up there is car manufacturing. So I said to this girl, what does your family do? And she said, oh, my mother and father work in I think it's a Nissan factory in Sunderland. We get talking. Farage pops up on the TV screen in front of us. And I said, what do you make of him? And I'm thinking, young girl, 20 years of age, it's useful to kind of see what people think or how he cuts through. And she says, oh, yeah, my parents love him and we all voted for Brexit. And I said, why would you vote for Brexit? Why did I like Farage? And she says, oh, my dad thinks he's the only modern politician he'd like to go for a pint with. And I said, do you realise what Brexit is going to do to car manufacturing in the UK? And she said, what? So it's going to decimate it. There will be no car manufacturing in the UK. And that is what we are nearing now in Britain. And yes, he punches through, the politician that people want to go and have a drink with. Farage, it's very, very
It's
odd.
worse than that, though, or rather better than that, or worse than that, depending on which you believe, because in a one-on-one with both characters side by side in a split screen on the television, Starmer and Farage, you'd go for Farage all day. He's far more politically articulate. He's far more message-driven, like you were talking about a minute ago. And he makes his point with succinctly, whereas Starmer is unsure of what he's even trying to say.
Yeah,
this is the thing that old saying that the intelligent ones among us are full of doubt. The idiots among us are sure of what they're saying.
Absolutely.
And this is what it is. Look, Farage and these people, these monsters, are totally sure of what they're saying, which makes you feel, I buy this guy. Whereas the ones who are the more intelligent and nuanced and troubled, and the ones who have the more difficult sell, look as if they don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, look, I would say Farage gets a very easy ride in the UK media, and that is on presenters and journalists and broadcasters. Yes, giving him an easy pass, and they'll make it sound as if they're being confrontational. The most difficult interview Farage had, I think it was Claire Byrne. Claire Byrne tore him apart on RTE a few years ago. Absolutely wiped the floor with him. And I'm guessing he hasn't been back with Claire Byrne since, because these people will say, Nigel doesn't actually want to do that, blah, blah, blah. So, look, Farage is a good communicator, but a lot of people see him as a snake oil salesman. Scratch the surface. What's he going to do? How's he going to stop the boats? How's he going to improve the economy? How is he going to get Britain working again? He has no answers for anything. And stopping the boats coming across, this is, again, another major issue that will be a talking point in the run-up to the next election here. 25,000 people have come across that stretch of water this year so far, breaking into the UK, effectively breaking in illegally, and there doesn't seem to be any answers. I just find it absurd. I heard one guy the other day on TV, just a member of the public, stopped in the street, and he said, "You're telling me Britain was able to defeat Nazi Germany and we can't stop dinghies?"
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things is, one of the biggest programs of the early 1970s, was World at War, The Laurence Olivier narrated series that was hours and hours long, in depth, right? Yeah. Another one, Civilization, the great series, the legendary series, mate. We're now living in an age of Love Island. What I'm talking about is education. The reason why Donald Trump and Donald Trump and that cohort of Project 25 guys can get away with what they're getting is because the public that they're preaching to are completely uneducated and uninformed. And the number they need, the vital number, the whatever you call it, 51% or the 46% that they need, are uneducated and ill-informed. And this is what's happening in Britain as well. And you've just illustrated it. The person who is voting for Nigel Farage does not know that person will close down the car factory that they live next door to. And that's the crucial thing. They don't know that they're kicking themselves in the bollocks by voting for these things. So it's education. You know, and it's gone. It's the ignorance. It's the forced and willfully imparted ignorance onto the populace that is making them dumb, ill-informed, and subject to any snake oil salesman that comes their way.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. And that was the first thing Blair said when he came to power in May 97. Those words 3 times, education, 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 landed the message. Unfortunately, the education system in the UK is not good. So you meet these people who went to private school and public school, and they went to all the correct kind of tick box places like Eton, and then they end up in Oxford doing PPE, politics, philosophy and economics. And then, what's next? Oh, I'll try become an MP. And then they suddenly end up in the Conservative Party. And then through family connections, they get given a junior portfolio, and then suddenly they're in the cabinet. Britain has many, many problems. The class system is at the heart of everything that has gone wrong here. Farage making himself out to be a friend of the working class. He's establishment, privately educated, ex-hedge fund manager.
Multi-millionaire.
And, multi-millionaire. And, the earnings have gone through the roof since Brexit. And then, when there is a major crisis, he will head off down to the local pub. He will be seen pictured with a glass, one of those old-fashioned glass tankards of an English ale, and everyone loves him. I tell you what, if he becomes Prime Minister in 4 years' time, last person left in England, turn out the lights.
Another thing about Britain, I mean, I'm not trying to be political here overtly, but I was talking to some Tig yesterday, another person on the podcast, and I was saying from the outsider's point of view, just listening to UK media, you would think there's a man they call Jeremy Corbyn. And this man they called Jeremy Corbyn, you would be forgiven for thinking that this guy was Satan with 2 horns. Beelzebub, who had destroyed the country single-handedly and was, quite honestly, an evil man, obviously out for himself. Maybe he had 10 billion in the bank. He was also a virulent anti-Semite running around trying to kill Jews. And from an outsider's point of view, I'm an Irishman living in Ireland who's followed British politics over the years. And as far as I understand, this man called Jeremy Corbyn is one of the most deep, meaningful parliamentarians that has existed in a very much Tony Wedgwood Ben kind of frame of mind. A person who believes deeply in egalitarianism, equality of opportunity, education for the poor, then a real national health service, not just nodding your head, tugging your forelock to a national health service, that he believes in bringing people up. And this man is being made out to be a monster. I don't understand. It's turned upside down in Britain. We mentioned Nick Ferrari the other day. Nick Ferrari, we'll be joined in a minute by Nigel. Ask Nigel. Nigel's going to be in for another hour. You can get your questions into Nigel Farage. Meanwhile, we hear that monster, that fucking idiot, Jeremy Corbyn is in the news again. Does anybody even remember him anymore? Call us. And you're there. Are you serious? Is that the way? Is that your media literacy now, that you think Jeremy Corbyn is Satan, but ask Uncle Nigel the question? Where are we? Where has it gone?
So you need to understand that you have large chunks of the media here owned by a very small percentage of the population. So you've got the Daily Mail, you've got all the right-wing shock radio that taxi drivers listen to, and that is the narrative. Corbyn evil, Farage good, Boris good. And if you watch the front pages as well, you know, they will refer to if Sunak had a policy or Johnson, it would be Boris, Rishi, Liz, Nigel. Starmer is Starmer is Starmer. So they portray all right-wing politicians as your cuddly, friendly uncle or auntie, but Corbyn is the devil.
Tell me a little bit about TRT, what you're doing now. I've really enjoyed this, by the way. You've been brilliant. And tell me a bit about TRT, where we can check you out and find you.
Yeah, please do. My show is called Roundtable. It is a European current affairs show. We're on air every day, 4:00 in the afternoon, repeated at 10:30 at night. And Roundtable is me as the host. We pick a topic, so it could be Irish presidential elections. It could be UK political fragmentation, deep fake legislation in Denmark. What have we done recently? A show about Zelensky. We take a topic, we get the experts round the table. If they can't be with me in person in the studio in London, we get them up, Wonders in Modern Technology. They'll be in Kiev or wherever, bang, 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 all the European capitals. We travel a lot with the show. I take it on the road. We get top experts and voices. And I see myself just as the conduit to get their opinions. It's a half-hour show, and I absolutely love it. And believe it or not, here's just a humble brag for you, or a not-so-humble brag. Roundtable gets 280 million viewers worldwide every day.
Flippin' hell.
And that is, 50-plus times the population of Ireland every single day. So, yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. I miss Sky, but I was never going to be in a position to get my own show because all the best gigs were clogged up by Kay Burley and others.
And Lord Rothermere.
And Lord Rothermere's of the world. So here we are.
Enda Brady, listen, an absolute pleasure talking to you. A really, real pleasure talking to you. And hopefully maybe sometime you'll come on soon again.
I will, Mario. Thank you.
Thank you, Enda. And my thanks to Enda Brady for telling me all about his fascinating life story so far. And long may he continue entertaining us and informing us in the world of journalism. My thanks again to deluxebathrooms.ie. Their blowout August sale goes on until August 31st, 70% off, up to 70% off bathroom tiles and furnishings. Make up that dream bathroom that you've always dreamed of. And go visit Deluxe Bathrooms or deluxebathrooms.ie online. Thanks to you for listening, of course, the most important element. If you can, tell one other person about my podcast and I'd be delighted. Thanks.